Hello, hello out there. Can you hear me okay? I see that there are people here already. This is awesome. Hi, Line. Good evening from Sweden. What time is it for you? I think we're 7 or 8 hours difference. Right now, I'm in Mountain Standard Time, or yeah, Mountain Standard, but Arizona does not change time zones. I mean, Arizona does not change our clocks. So when Yes, we hear you. It's 8:22 for you. Okay. So when daylight savings time happens in the US, which is in a couple weeks, Arizona doesn't change times on their clock. So I switch from being on Mountain Standard to Pacific Daylight, the same time as Pacific Daylight. So it's really it gets kind of confusing for me because everybody that's not in Arizona, they have their meetings set at certain times and their meeting times don't change. They just have changed their clocks. And so now I have to adjust for everybody else's meeting times being different in Arizona. So, hi Mike from Mike's Adventure Sparks. Thank you for being here. So, today we are talking about I put it in the I pinned a comment. We're talking about this comment that I got on my most recent YouTube video. And the person said, "Pardon me, but why on earth would you need to feel attractive at your age? That part of life has passed. Being stuck there is super problematic." Um, I am when and Mike knows this, when you create yeah, I don't like daylight savings time either. Uh just partially because it's super confusing as someone who lives in Arizona. So um but this when you're a creator on YouTube, we're going to get these kind of comments. I've gotten comments before. I've gotten comments about my sad gray hair, that I should wear a wig, and you'll see a dog in the background here. Yes, there she is. I'm like Rob and having his cat, Peanut. I'm dog sitting, so this is Osley. Uh, when we have a YouTube channel, we have to be ready for these kind of comments, right? But this one got me curious about the intent and the meaning behind it. I didn't take it personally in any way because I know that this is this person's it's their place in life, it's where they are, and they were just commenting on something that they thought, why is she wanting to feel attractive at her age? But so I want to talk about that, and I would love to know what you think about this comment. But I think it's common, especially for women, to we have been conditioned, right, to have that certain characteristics and certain behaviors are becoming of us and others aren't becoming of us. And as we get older, that maybe wanting to feel attractive is a hey, Andy. Yeah, you feel that comment is childish. And we all are living from our inner child. Our one of my mentors, Mike Foster, calls it kid logic, right? Because, and that's what I was going to say, is our conditioning, especially as females, was to be polite, to be certain ways. Guys, I don't think they got this type of conditioning, especially around looks, as much uh, as women or girls did. So there's a lot of conditioning to this. But this comment, this person, I don't know if it was male or female, the person commenting, but this person most likely was going back to what Mike Foster calls our kid logic, because that is 95% of where we are coming from in our life. Our kid logic is part of our subconscious. It's the programming. It's the primal mind that we have, the primitive mind, right? And when we get triggered, maybe this person got triggered by what I said in my video. Um, and I'll tell you where the context came from. Just call me, hey, Debbie, I have many elderly, like 80 plus patients still dating and marrying. People are having fun out there. Yay, that's awesome. Um, oh, what was I saying? I lose my train of thought. Um, Oh, where this comment came from. Wow, there's 15 watching. That's amazing. Thanks for being here. Uh, and Miss M, hello, I'm new to the channel. Hi, Miss M. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. So we're talking about a comment that I have pinned in the chat section. We're talking about why on earth would you need to feel attractive at your age? Something that someone commented on my YouTube video, a recent YouTube video. And what I said in the video was, I was married for 17 years. He had an affair at year 2.5, and I stayed married for 15 more years because I was operating from kid logic, right? I was operating from this need to feel safe and connected and to not want to be rejected in my life. And so subconsciously, so I gained a lot of weight during that time, about 30, 35 pounds. And I said, and what I was going to say was my subconscious, our subconscious, its main job is to keep us alive, right? And the way it does that is to keep us safe. And the way it keeps us safe is to keep us what's in familiar territory or predictable, right? It's just a predicting machine. So my subconscious was saying, okay, if she stays overweight, which it doesn't really make sense, then she won't feel attractive, which will make her just stay in her comfort zone, and therefore she'll be safe, right? Our kid logic doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And that's why we can stay on this hamster wheel of repeating patterns that don't serve us in our lives. That's why we can stay in these patterns, is because it's all conditioning. I was conditioned to think about myself in a certain way when I was young. And then I grew into an adult who had these subconscious beliefs that were limiting me in my life. So the commenter, why on earth would you need to feel attractive at your age? That's what that person was commenting on. But then they threw in the thing about at your age, right? And at the time that I thought that and that I was gaining weight, I was in my 40s. Now I'm 63. So at what age should I no longer want to feel attractive? Let's see what people are saying. Debbie said, oh, I read that already. Line said, I think it's so interesting that when men get gray and look older, it's distinguished, right? They're attractive, but when women look older, it's unattractive. I don't get that. I hope I'll feel attractive my whole life. I saw someone else commented on, I did a community post yesterday or the day before and put this comment in there asking for, feedback, what people thought. And they said, I hope to stay attractive until I'm basically in the grave and can come back and haunt people. um, so I'm going to talk about that, Line, about attractive and what that really means. Hi, Catherine. It's great to catch you live. It's great that you're here. Thanks. And Beth said, hello, we have limiting beliefs that we have learned as children. Exactly. Exactly. So, this person that was commenting was also commenting from their limiting belief, right? On what they believe about what's attractive. Catherine said, I'm 61 and I like to feel attractive, but I do struggle with my age these past 2 to 3 years since I've got more wrinkles. Yeah, I don't have gray hair. I take after my father. It's all real, no hair color. Yeah, mine is all natural now too, but and I tend to think that it's blonde, but I guess I guess I'm gray. But anyway, so what I heard in that comment and what I think a lot of women possibly could hear in that comment is shame on you for wanting to feel good about yourself, right? That you're too old or that there's an expiration date for wanting to feel attractive, and after a certain age you no longer have value, that you don't matter. And so I want to talk about that. And Catherine said, I love natural gray hair. Yeah. My mom has beautiful hair. She's almost 95. And it's really salt and pepper. And it's just absolutely beautiful. Welcome to everybody that's here. Thank you so much for being here. Um, so when we listen to these comments, they can end up making us feel invisible. And I'm releasing a video. It may be tomorrow. Now I was hoping for today, but it may be tomorrow, about this and going into more depth. But I was fired when I was 58, and I had been at this company for 7 years, and I thought I would retire at that company. So I had 7 more years to go. And I went into work one day and was let go immediately, and walked out of the building. So when that happened, it was like my value bubble was just suddenly popped, right? Like someone poked a pin in the balloon and my value just like went out as fast as the air goes out of a balloon. Andy said, gray hair is the thing right now for women. I can't wait to go gray. Um, yeah, it is because yeah, the pandemic was the start of that. And there are a lot of women influencers on Instagram and YouTube that are, talking about going gray. And I just don't want the chemicals anymore, right? Um, so anyway, I was fired, and I had been there for 7 years, and there were less than 20 people at this company. And so they were like family to me. And not one person contacted me after. And so it was like suddenly at the age of 58, I was suddenly invisible to these people that I had hung out with for so long. And it was really, um, it was an eye-opening moment for me about how much I had put my value into what other people thought of me and the job I was doing and how I showed up. Like it was my value was based a lot on what they thought. And I think this comment that this person made about, um, why on earth would you want to feel attractive at your age speaks to that, right? Like me, the attractiveness has something to do with my value. So again, why do we feel like this in the first place? We were conditioned to think this way, especially as women. We were spoon-fed this specific script about attractiveness and qualities and characteristics that we had. And so it makes so much sense that, again, especially as women, and I'm not excluding men, but we had different things that we were told when we were young. And all of that, there's no choice. We're born basically as blank computers with no software, and everything we're told that we experience up until about the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, it all goes in as the software, and that becomes the program that runs our life. The beautiful thing is that we can reprogram ourselves at any point. Um, the subconscious doesn't know the difference between real and fake. So whatever you start telling it as truth, it will start to believe and it will start to reprogram that as truth. Everybody's saying, hello, hello. Hello, Rhonda. Thanks for being here. Oh, this is awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It's awesome. So again, we are programmed, and especially as women, we're taught to play small, to shrink, a lot of us. I'm not speaking for everybody because I know there are some girls that were taught, to speak up for themselves. But I think especially my generation, the boomers and the ones that are a little bit younger than boomers, were taught that we needed to be seen and not heard. I had someone comment on another video. She said, I think it was her dad that told her that she was prettier when she was quiet. So there's all this conditioning, all these messages around, how we need to show up. And then we grow up thinking that this is just the way it is, that this is just who I am. So it makes sense why we would think this way. And part of that going along with it and not bucking, what we were told when we were young is because, again, the subconscious's job is to keep us safe. And in order to be safe and survive life when we're young, we have to belong, right? We have to have caretakers that take care of us and don't desert us, don't reject us, right? So we're reliant on them. But then we grow up into adults who have we can have our own agency and be our own sovereign being, but we're still operating under those limiting beliefs that the stories that we told ourselves when we were young. So when we don't examine this becomes the truth of who we are. And we end up wearing a mask and being something that we're not. We end up not trusting ourselves. Men are looking less distinguished than men. Fashion is being reshaped. Rhonda says she's rocking the gray hair and loving it. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, as women in particular, we end up when we grow up with these beliefs that being attractive at a certain age no longer has a purpose, or that it's maybe conceited, or um that it's like I said, shame on you for wanting to feel good about yourself. But let's talk about what happens when we do that, right? When we don't think that we deserve to feel good about ourselves. And really, attractive is not just looks, right? Because looks can mean something different to everybody. And but I think this commenter was saying, attractive as a physical appearance. But here's the thing, my body is not who I am, right? Your body is not who you are. It is just your meat suit that you are traveling through this life school journey on, right? There's nothing about your body that is who you are. And so when we start to connect our body to attractiveness, that makes us start to minimize ourselves, because I can pick apart, just like who was it? I think Catherine said, she doesn't like her wrinkles, right? Like I have them too. We could stand and look in the mirror and pick apart ourselves all day long and not feel attractive, right? Which is going to make us show up small in the world. It's going to make us show up less than. And ultimately, it's going to make us abandon ourselves because we think this body that person was saying, attractive or not attractive, we think that's what makes us loved or fit in or to feel good about ourselves. We base it on our appearance. And being attractive, I want to talk about that, is not about appearance. It's not about our outer appearance because, again, this is just my meat suit that I'm going through life in. Without it, I couldn't experience things because I wouldn't have eyes to see. I wouldn't have my nose to smell my amazing mushroom coffee in the morning, right? I wouldn't have my ears to hear. I wouldn't be able to, pet a dog who's now laying quietly at my feet. Um, yeah, your meat suit. So true. Catherine said, I know I need to accept my wrinkles because they're not going to get less from here on in. I'm working on it. Right? Again, if you can look at it, and believe me, I beat myself up for many years and I still have to catch myself, right? I'm not perfect. I look in the mirror sometimes and start, picking at myself and then realize that that's not who I am, right? And if I'm trying to live up to this attractive mentality, what society views as attractive, who's measuring that? Whose yardstick is that? And so I just have to let it go. Beth said, I have several friends who have based their worth on their beauty. It's been very hard for them to age. Yeah, absolutely. They're very busy comparing themselves to younger women and they're missing life. Exactly. Oh my gosh. That is exactly so true. So, and what happens is, and I'm sure that's what happens with, um, models and people that are in the limelight. Whitney Houston, right? Like mentally, that really screws with our head. So, what happens when we start picking at those things is like Beth said, they're comparing themselves to younger women. They stop choosing themselves. They're not accepting themselves for who they are. Wow, thank you for all you being here. There's 20 people watching live. That's amazing, amazing, amazing. I'm so excited that you're here. Uh, Let me know in the comments in the chat. Is this a topic? Like, what caused you to jump on this live today? Did it just hit at the right time? You saw it? Was the title, did that capture your attention? Like what got your attention? What caused you to be here today? I would just love to know. But so when we compare ourselves, right, we're putting them on a pedestal and making ourselves less than. And we're never going to show up fully in our lives when we think that other people are better than us. When we're not meeting the expectations of others or of society. And that can get us really, really screwed up. Catherine said she didn't see the title. You just wanted to watch me live. Well, thanks. Lena said, I wanted to be here again like last week. I really like your lives. Thank you. I wanted to support you. Thank you, Miss M. Thank you so much. So, yeah, what ends up happening, right? Then, and especially again, as women, we were taught if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, put other people first. Other people are more important. Their feelings matter. Don't hurt their feelings, right? Do whatever you can to please them. And so we end up putting everyone else first. And when we're comparing ourselves, right, we're definitely doing what we can to put them first, to make them feel good so that they'll accept me, right? Because we want to be part of that fold of attractive women. What can I do? What can I do to myself to make me fit in to that group? Beth said, I'll be 60 soon and have finally learned the beauty really does come from the inside. Absolutely. And Mike said he's here to support my channel. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you. I would love to know more from the men's perspective too, right? Like what were you taught? Was Was beauty a thing for you? I don't think so, but, like, what do you see in society that is causing you to maybe not show up as your authentic self? And Rhonda said she saw that I was live and hopped on. Great, thank you. So what happens ultimately then is we stop caring for ourselves in a healthy way, right? We start focusing on what can I do to get rid of the wrinkles? Maybe we go for Botox, maybe we, chemically dye our hair, maybe we go for liposuction, right? Like we go for these quick, I'm going to call them quick fixes to try and change the exterior instead of working on what is inside, because that, just like um, Beth said, that beauty comes from the inside. Our body, our meat suit is not who we are. Mike said, not so much beauty, but strength. Like strength, physical strength. So you were taught to, work out, have muscles, be fit in that way. So it becomes easy to say when we're beating ourselves up this way, when we're thinking other people, comparing ourselves to other people, it can be easy to say, they didn't choose me, right? Like when I was fired, they didn't choose me. And what I'm wondering is, what would it take for me to choose me, right? What would it take for you to choose you fully, to accept yourself completely the way you are? Mike said, yeah, physical strength. Beth said, like boys and men shouldn't show emotion or cry. Yeah, I've heard that before. So we we think that we're not worthy, right? And that worthiness is a deep thread that runs through most of us, right? And that can be feeling unattractive is a slippery slope to feeling unworthy. And we end up, as women, again, especially, we end up playing a starring role in everyone else's life instead of, sorry, we end up playing a supporting role in everyone else's life instead of starring in our own, right? Everybody else comes first. My dad would always say, "Don't cry, I'll give you something to cry about," right? Yeah, me too. So that's not um that is not uh exclusive to the male gender. Um I asked my mom about that recently because she told me that a lot. I was very emotional as a kid, but I think part of that was I wanted someone to ask me to find out why I was crying, why I was hurting, but nobody ever did. And I would just get told, "Stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about." And I asked her about that recently. Like I said, she's almost 95. She'll be 95 in March, and still lives on her own. She's super healthy, is doing great. But I asked her, why, like, weren't you more emotionally demonstrative? And she said, because her family wasn't, and my dad's family wasn't either. So they grew up just stuffing that down, right? You put on a stiff upper lip, or, you know, put some dirt on it and get over it and pull up your bootstraps, right? They were Swedish. My my ancestors were Swedish immigrants to the US, and they were farmers, and they worked hard and they toiled and suffered and went through the Great Depression, and just emotions weren't a thing. And so I think my mom just wasn't comfortable. She didn't know what to do with me when I cried. And so her reaction would be, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. Right, Beth said it's generational. So, let's go back to this beauty thing, right? Um, I think Catherine said, it's about the internal, it's about the inside. It's not beauty is not about external looks. It's not about vanity. It's about not abandoning ourselves, right? Just because we think we're not good enough or that we don't fit in. Attractive is a feeling. It's like feeling alive inside, recognizing that this that you see or that I see when I look in the mirror is not who I am. This is just my meat suit that I'm going through life with. And for women, I want to say a lot of us have been objectified, right? We're not objects, right? We're not decorations. We're living, breathing beings. So I say that because I want you to own your space, right? Not let these kind of comments about why on earth would you need to feel attractive at your age? Not letting those comments derail us from the life that we were put here to live. And how attractive or not someone sees me from the outside really says more about them than it does about me, because what I want people to see is my heart, right? And that's 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 where I serve from, not from what I look like, right? I don't and even models and people that are in the limelight, right? They're here to serve as well, but if we could see their heart, uh, it would be a different story. I'm sure you all know an actor or actress that maybe you have seen something about them, that's not about the movie that they were in, that made you, like, really, um, love them more because they shared their heart versus you just seeing them in a movie. Like, I love Jamie Lee Curtis. I think she's an amazing woman, and her message isn't about her movies, right? It's about living life no matter what age you are, and talk about rocking the gray. Hi, Third Eye Frog. It's not the external beauty I speak of, right? Amen, Heidi. Beth said it's not about you, it's about them. Third Eye Frog said, my job was literally given to husband by Boise City on his birthday. I'm not sure what you're referencing. Oh, Joe here from Idaho, also 63, and a newish yogi, Mary Magdalene revealed pilgrim. Beauty is always aligned with our divinity. Oh, that's cool. I like that. I like that. So it's not a flaw or a mental hangup to want to feel good about yourself, right? And that's what I would say to that commenter is, I don't think it's a flaw or that I have a hangup if I want to feel attractive, if I want to feel healthy. It's healthy mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to feel good about yourself, to know that you're here for a purpose, and your purpose has nothing to do with what you look like. A Course in Miracles, I love this quote. As I was preparing for this, I came across this and I was like, oh my gosh, this fits in perfectly with what I want to talk about. A Course in Miracles says, you cannot love what you do not appreciate. When you are afraid of what you are, you do not appreciate it, and will therefore reject it. Right? When you are afraid of what you are, you do not appreciate it. And maybe that commenter that left that comment has something about themselves that they don't like, right? When you are afraid of what you are, you do not appreciate it and therefore will reject it. So a lot of times comments like this, right, that we get from people in our lives that seem hurtful, right? They're just projections, right? We have to remember that. They're just projections from that person of something that is happening in their life that they don't like, that they have a hard time accepting about themselves. And they're operating from, like one of my mentors says, Mike Foster, kid logic, right? They're going back to the stories, the limiting beliefs that are in their subconscious, right? We all have a different programming, right? We all have different software that's downloaded into our computer, AKA our brain. And we're all operating under our own software. And so if you want to change something in your life, we have to change that programming. We have to change that software because that software, if you don't, what's the word? If you don't challenge it, it will stay the same. And by examining, what am I believing about myself? What is it about that comment that triggered me? Why why did I get, upset about it? Um, right? Like asking ourselves that and then listening for the answer. And that's what I help people do. I'm a coach, I'm a mindset coach, and I help people find those limiting beliefs that are there because we all have them. They're like, I call them BS, blind spots, right? Most of them we don't even recognize we're operating under. But it is a, a truth that our subconscious mind operates 95% of our day. And so if you don't look at what's happening in your life, where you get triggered, what kind of comments like that throw you off and why, then you'll just continue on that hamster wheel and you'll keep repeating the same pattern over and over of being triggered or of spiraling because somebody said something that didn't land well with you. But you feel bad for setting boundaries or saying that's not okay to speak to me that way, whatever it is, right? Whatever your thing is that you've been taught to follow, you'll continue down that path until you examine it and say, oh, wow, maybe that's just my kid logic, my inner child that's speaking, that wants to feel safe. And for some reason, that comment made my subconscious, my inner child, my little kid not feel safe. And so my subconscious's job is to keep me alive, keep me safe. So it is going to have me react in the way that it knows to keep me safe. And that could be shutting down, freezing, right? Fight, right? Some people get argumentative about it, right? We fight, we flee, we flight, go into flight. We just go into avoidance. We freeze, right? We don't know what to say. Maybe in the moment, someone says something to your face. And then the last one is fawn or appease. So fight, flight, freeze, appease. We go into people pleasing, right? Oh my gosh, putting them on a pedestal, right? To stay accepted. So we go into these kid patterns, these kid logic patterns that if we don't look at them and examine them, we will continue to run those patterns and those patterns will run our life. They are just as automatic as putting on your seatbelt. You don't even think about doing it. And so that's what I help people do is look at the patterns, look at the things that aren't going the way you want to in your life, and then examining what are the blind spots that you don't even realize are there. Most of the time, it takes someone else to help us see our blind spots because I can be on the outside. I'm not in your brain, right? I'm not in your body. I'm not in your head. So I can view things from the outside and go, "Oh, let's examine that, because there's something deeper to that than just you being triggered, you spiraling over, what someone said. Catherine said to Beth, "Oh, never saying no. Always put others' needs ahead of your own, to keep quiet and not argue or have an opinion." Exactly, exactly. And again, as females, I think that's what we were taught. Catherine said, "Building a real relationship with my inner 5-year-old and 15-year-old is one of the best things I've done these past 5 years. It's been life-changing." It is life-changing, right? Because until we're willing to look at that, and it can be painful to look at. I mean, I've done some really, really awful, negative, I've said negative things. I've done negative, hurtful things to other people. And looking at it can be confronting, right? Like, holy crap. But again, when we accept that we're human and that we all make mistakes, that's how we learn and grow. If I'm not willing to look at it, if I just stay in avoidance, that's what gets people addicted, right? When we're avoiding something, how do we avoid it? We numb out with something: alcohol, drugs, sex, social media, binge watching, food, right? We numb, and that becomes an addiction. One of my addictions was people pleasing, keeping other people happy, because what happened was, when they were happy, they they told me how nice I was, what a sweet person I was, right? That was an addiction. I was addicted to hearing that validation from other people. So when we avoid, by not being willing to look at what things are repeating in my life, and once we see them, the shift can happen really fast. It doesn't have to be painful and long and drawn out and torturous, right? Once we see them and can accept them, that I was just operating from a place of needing to stay safe, of needing to belong, of needing to survive. That's where my people pleasing came from, was as a kid needing to stay in the fold, right, of my parental, of my family. Because as a 7-year-old, if I'd been left to my own devices, I probably wouldn't have survived life. Catherine said, "I talk to those parts most days. Those parts are still with us all." Right. That's the thing, is a lot of times I wish that part would just go away, right? But that's like cutting off my arm. It doesn't change my body, right? It doesn't change who I am on the inside by cutting off my arm. And so wanting to get rid of those parts, to destroy those parts, and I say that's where narcissism um plays out a lot more, because someone with narcissistic personality disorder, I learned this after being married to one, was that they loathe themselves so much that they want to find someone else that is a lot like them, and then they project the parts that they don't like about themselves, the parts, right, that they don't like about themselves on that other person, and then they want to demolish that other person in hopes that they'll get rid of the parts within them that they don't like. So they project that onto the other person, and then they try to destroy that other person in order to try and destroy what's within them that they don't like. So we don't want to get rid of those parts. They're part of us. And here's something that I had this huge aha last year in January, a year ago. You know how I've heard many times, maybe you haven't, but I have many times, that once I forgive myself, then life will be better. And I had this huge, oh, I just got goosebumps. I had this huge aha. What do I have to forgive about myself? What do you have truly to forgive about yourself? You were just running the programming that you were given. Now, as an adult, if you aren't willing to examine that programming and change the things that are hurtful to you and other people in your life, that's a different story. But operating under kid logic, uh, we don't have any choice but to run those programs that our subconscious is 95% of our day. So 5% is my choice every day. 95% is not my choice. It's just the program. So what is it that I have to forgive myself for truly? I was just running the program. That was such a freeing aha to me. And I know it's completely counter to what we've been taught or what you've maybe heard, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I was just running the program and the pattern. Now that I recognize them, I can do something about it. But at the time, I couldn't because I didn't know. I didn't know. I wasn't conscious of what I was doing. Bye, Catherine. Thanks for being here. Rhonda said, I had to forgive myself for those things I did while in survival mode. But I guess it depends on like how we view the word forgiveness. And to me, it just felt like a weapon to use against myself that until I forgave myself, that I wasn't worthy. And so like letting go of that and having that realization that forgiving myself, my worthiness didn't depend on my forgiveness, and my forgiveness didn't mean anything other than recognizing that I was just running a program. It would be like trying to paint a beautiful picture in Google Sheets, right? The program isn't set up for that. It's not set up for art, right? It's set up for numbers and calculations. So trying to be something that I wasn't programmed to be wasn't really my fault. I was just running the program. I was running the people pleasing program. I was running the I'm not important program. I'm not worthy program. I'm not valuable program. And I don't see that there's anything to forgive there. I was just running the program. Beth said, I think we need to embrace that inner child and comfort them and tell them that they are loved. Absolutely. So the one thing I want to say before we go, I'm pretty well done here, exhausting this subject of attractiveness. Why on earth, Heidi, would you need to feel attractive at your age? So going back to that, do what you want with your life to feel good about yourself inside, and that will reflect on the outside, right? Thanks, Beth. It's not selfish to do that. And feeling good about yourself inside becomes your anchor, like your compass, your North Star. And that's what drives how is this going to feel to me if I do this or say this or eat this thing or drink this or have this second glass of wine, right? Or spend all this time on social media. How am I going to feel about myself inside? And let that become your guide for how you move forward. And when you like yourself, you stop asking for permission to exist. You stop apologizing for who you are in your life, and you start choosing what you like, what you want, what you desire. So I want to close with this. Because of all of this and what I have gone through in my life, I created a program, a women's wisdom circle. Sorry, guys, it's for women only. Um, Called Choosing Me. It starts next Wednesday, the 18th. It is every other week for 14 weeks, so 7 sessions, and we're basing it on it's not a book study, but we're basing it on The Selfish Year. The principles of that book, we're going to incorporate into this women's wisdom circle. And this is a place for women if they've always put other people first and they want to start putting themselves be the starring role in their own life. This is where we're going to talk about that. And it's not about me being the coach, right? I'm the facilitator of the group. I'll help you uncover some of those blind spots, what you're avoiding, what you're maybe addicted to in your life. And I say that, right? Choosing ourself, that's your choice. It's your choice to do that. So be rebellious, choose you, refuse to disappear in your life, refuse to be invisible, refuse to be erased. So if you want help doing that, I would love for you to check out the Wisdom Circle. There's a link down in the description of this live, and I'll also put it in the comments for the replay. But check it out. Again, it starts next Wednesday, and I would love for any of you women who feel called. It is going to be a small, intimate group, and it'll be first come, first serve. So that's why I created it, to help women start putting themselves first and to stop looking at other people, comparing themselves to other people, and other people being more important than them, because we all have our own mission, our own purpose here on earth, and we are all equal in that way. None of us have a better or grander or more important purpose than anyone else. But I want to help you live into that purpose and shine your light so other people can, learn from your experiences. So again, I would love to have you in there. Um, and Mike says, I just need to lose 10 more pounds. I appreciate you being here. So with that, I am going to close. I don't think I have anything else to share with you right now. Again, I appreciate you so much being here, and have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next Wednesday, same time, same bat channel, and look for a video, a regular video coming out either later this afternoon or tomorrow on the same topic. Thanks for being here. Have a great day.